Hello, everybody. So we're going to talk about metabolism today, the exciting term that we're like, oh, you have a fast metabolism, and kind of what does it really mean and how does it affect us? And I'm going to call this Metabolism 101, and it's going to get a little biochemistry-wise, but that's essentially what our metabolism and our body is. It's chemistry and biology. So as we proceed here, we're going to talk about a few things if my screen goes. There we go. Metabolism. So we're going to talk about two things in the beginning, anabolism and catabolism. And both of these things, metabolism is kind of the balance between both. So anabolism, smaller molecules are assembled to make larger ones. Example like you're building muscle. Catabolism, larger molecules are broken down into smaller ones. So that would be, i.e., chewing and eating and digesting. So we're breaking those larger molecules down into smaller ones. So this actually is a good example of the circle of life. Now, when we think about the circle of life, yeah, we think about the Lion King. But it starts with photosynthesis, so like how a plant gets the energy from the sun, and then small rodents, other things eat that, and then it kind of goes into the hierarchy of the food chain. However, it really does come full circle, and you got to think that, so even that mouse that is going to get eaten by the snake in this illustration, it eats the grass and grain, and it builds muscle and fat and tissue, and it grows. So it's taking something from one state to another and converting it into tissue and growing. So everything is contracting and expanding, contracting and expanding. So that is, in reality, what the circle of life is that we're always going through this. So obviously, in our metabolic state, in our metabolism, it's the sum of catabolism and anabolism. And then the byproduct of part of this process is going to be something we call ATP, and ATP is our energy source in the body. So it's our energy source. So as we move forward, we're going to dive into that a little bit deeper. Okay, so for example, when we consume a carbohydrate, it's broken down into glucose, and then it goes down into a further level, and then as it continuously breaks down, it breaks down into pyruvic acid. As it continues down that process, then it's converted into acetyl-CoA. Now, from there, it goes into a process called Krebs Cycle. Krebs Cycle only exists when we need energy. So this is hence making your metabolism faster when you require the energy. So Krebs Cycle is this sequence. Actually, I'm going to go onto the next screen because we'll talk about that here. So Krebs Cycle is the sequence of reactions by which most living cells generate during the process of aerobic respiration. It takes place in mitochondria consuming oxygen, producing carbon dioxide and water as waste products, and converting ADP into energy-rich ATP. So ATP is simply our life source. It's our energy. So ATP is phenomenal. In fact, there's a company in Charlottesville that's doing a lot of research on ATP in reference to Alzheimer's. So ATP really is our life source. So this is energy. Now, Krebs Cycle only exists, as I said previously, just a little bit ago, Krebs Cycle only exists when we need the energy. Okay, so ATP is energy. ATP is what we need to survive, and it's how we actually convert things, and it is absolutely phenomenal. Okay, so metabolism summary here. So proteins are broken down into amino acids. As we said about carbohydrates, carbohydrates are broken down into glucose and fructose. Your fats and lipids broken down into fatty acid and glycerol. See, the goal is, and the citric acid cycle, as it says here, is the same exact thing. It has numerous names as a Krebs cycle. So the goal is for everything to get to the process of creating energy to where you have that byproduct, or the product, sorry, of ATP. Now, the way that this happens, it's a more likely process, as you see through this illustration, if you look at the lines, that protein's broken down into amino acids, tissue protein, so on and so forth. It moves forward, and then it gets it directly into that Krebs cycle or citric acid cycle. Carbohydrates has a little bit of a longer process, to get there. Now, fatty acids has a very, very low likelihood of actually getting this. So when we think about using energy, you almost have to think about when you eat, and this goes down into your meal timing and your ratios of protein, carbs, and fats, which we've touched on a little bit before, and we can get further in depth into this, but this is in reference to your metabolism. Now, protein provides amino acids for your muscle, so that helps you build lean muscle, which muscle itself helps your metabolism increase, and we'll get into that. That would be probably metabolism 202, if you will. Okay, and then it's also for muscle repair, and they're protein carriers in the blood. Now, carbs is converted into glycogen. Now, glycogen can be used as energy, and it's the body's storage form of carbs in our body. So it can be used as energy, but if we don't actually expend it as energy, then it will be stored as fat. And fats are pretty much automatically stored as adipose tissue. Our body does see calories differently in how we consume them and how we burn them and converting it into energy. However, essentially, your fatty acids aren't necessarily the direction to go. And we've talked about the good fats, so that operates a little differently. And we can get into that on the metabolism tool whenever we get around to that one. And sorry, here we go. Now, the balance. So if you were to imagine a seesaw and metabolism was in the middle and anabolics on one side and catabolics on the other, that it's essentially a balance is what you're aiming for. Now, well, bodybuilders will tell you that they want to be in an anabolic state because then you're building muscle. However, the balance is controlled by hormones in our body, and they're more than just these two, but this is a good two examples of what these can do. So insulin, for example, is released by the pancreas. If you have high glucose, so if you've consumed a lot of carbs and sugars, or carbs that break down as sugars, it will increase your insulin. So the pancreas, it sends a signal to your body that you have a lot of carbs and you need to regulate your body's sugar, your body's glucose. So what it does, so it doesn't spike, it releases quite a bit of insulin and comes down. A reaction actually occurs in your brain where your brain doesn't even realize it's full when it spikes. So if you notice, if you eat good, healthy, natural foods, you're not as hungry because it does take a while to get to your stomach. But if you have a high level of insulin in your body that your pancreas is releasing, you can do damage to your pancreas, and which is the cause of type 2 diabetes. However, you can do damage to your pancreas, but then also you're going to overeat. So you're overeating. Not only are you eating the stuff that's not necessarily good for you, but you're going to eat a lot of it. And then your body's struggling trying to regulate its insulin and glycogen levels in the body. Now, thyroxine is actually really good because it's on both sides of anabolism and catabolism. Now, what that means is that it breaks down fat and carbs. So this hormone in your body, the chemical reaction, breaks down the fat and carbs. And it also works on the anabolic side to help you build muscle. So that's why when you have thyroid issues, and there's a whole host of reasons for thyroid issues, food preservatives and autoimmune diseases, genetic propensity, people that have been in severe calorie deficits, all of these other crazy things, you can do damage to your thyroid. When you do damage to your thyroid, then you affect this level. So that's why people get into the hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism, and could potentially struggle from there. And that could be on another edition of further into it. But essentially, at the end of the day, metabolism is a balance between anabolism and catabolism, which is breaking down and building up. So that's how it works. As always, let me know if you have any questions at all whatsoever, and feel free to shoot me an email, text, what have you. Have a phenomenal rest of your day, weekend, or whenever you're watching this. Have a great one. Take care.